Welcome back. In this video, we are going to sign in the user using email and password, and therefore you can go ahead and try to do yourself. So just follow along the password authentication here in the Firebase documentation, and you can see that it's they're using an extra variable here, which is called auth, in order to have the Firebase auth system once and not having to recreate it every single time you want to do something with it. But as we are just using it once when signing in, it's actually fine the way we do it, but both ways are fine. So you can of course go ahead and create a late initialized variable called Firebase auth or just auth, and then use that. So you need to initialize it at one point, of course, so you get the Firebase auth instance, and then you can go ahead and use this code here in order to sign in the email with, or the user with, an email and a password. All right, so please try to do that. Try to implement the sign in feature in the sign in activity. All right, so this time I'm gonna just follow along here. I'm just gonna use the documentation to create this new late init variable, and we need to go to our sign in activity. So in here, activities, and then the sign in activity. Then we need to create this late init variable that we want to initialize later on. So we need to import Firebase authentication, and then so we can either set the auth in on create, or we can do it at the moment when we actually use the function. So either way is fine. I think just doing it here is going to be fine as well. So let's just set the get instance here. Firebase auth get instance. All right, and now we of course need to have a function which allows us to sign in. So how do we want to call it? Well, I'm just going to call it sign in registered user. So private fun sign in registered user. You could of course also just call it sign in user. That would be fine as well. So now let's go back and check the code here. So it says val current user auth current user, check if user is signed in. So this is how you can check if the user is signed in. We will do that later on, but what's important is this part here. So where we sign in the user with email and password. So first of all, of course, we need to have the email and password. So val email string, that will be et email text to string, and then we trim as well. So actually it's the same as we had it in the sign up functionality. So here we only need email and password, so let's just copy those two over to our sign in activity because they're really just the same. We're just trimming an empty space at the end. Then we need to validate the form, and we're going to validate it in a very similar way as we've done here. So private fun validate form, let's just copy that and use it in our sign in activity as well. So here I'm just going to create one, but the difference is that I'm going to not use the name here. So when signing in, we just need the email and password, right? So we don't need to have the username as well. And here, of course, we can then get rid of this whole part here. And also we need to make sure that our class is inheriting from base activity, because in base activity, that's where we set up everything that we can now use for the snack bar. So show error snack bar is what we prepared in our base activity, and now we can reuse it here. So now we have validate form. Okay, so at this point we can validate the form with the email and password that we have from the user. So if email and password are validated, so validate form with email and password, if that is true, then we want to sign in the user. So in validate form, we just checked if the user has entered anything at all. If it's empty, then we just want to let him know, hey, you need to enter something. But otherwise, we're going to be fine with whatever he has entered. And then we can do the authentication. Of course, we can also first show the progress dialog. where we just let the user know, hey, please wait. So actually it's going to be the same as in sign up. And it's a little more because we also need to get the resources, get string and so forth. So let's do the same thing here. And it's almost the same function. So the sign in registered user is almost, or this validate form actually, it's almost the same function as our sign up, but slightly different still. Okay. Now we need to make sure that ET email is the right one because it is the one from sign up. So we need to make sure that it's the one from sign in. So ET email, we can see we have two here. So now what we can do is we can rename one of them. So let's rename the one from our sign up, or actually let's go for the one in sign in. I think that makes more sense. So here it's on our resources, layout, sign in, and here the edit texts are the ones that we are interested in, right? So text fields, input layout here, ET email underscore sign in, and then ET password underscore sign in. So how I'm gonna call them. All right. Now, of course, you could use sign underscore in to be more precise so that it's even happier here, just like that. Okay, so now in sign in, we need to make sure that it's ET email sign in and ET password sign in. Okay, because otherwise we will use the one from sign up. Okay, so at this point, we can go ahead and run our code. So here, we can now finally run the code from the website. So let's copy this and then add it in here. Okay, so update UI, I'm not going to use that. Log, well, we can use that. We can import it. We don't have a tag yet. That's also something that we might want to import. So import toast, update UI is not what we're going to use. So here they have tag as well. So I'm just going to call this tag sign in. And here as well, sign in. Also, by the way, this val user auth current user, well, that's fine, but we're not using it right now, so we don't need it yet. And also here we say authentication failed, but well, we are writing the exception in the logcat, so I think that's going to be fine. Okay, so this is very similar to what we had before. In our sign up here, of course, we could also, instead of toasting the whole error message to the user, which he doesn't understand probably, or which doesn't make sense to him, we could replace that, of course, with also registration failed or something like that. So let's just do that real quick here. Registration failed. All right. So now we can go ahead and test it. So let's see if we can sign in our user once we click the button. But of course, we still need to fix the error that we have here. So as it seems, I'm lacking one curly bracket at one point. When I copied the validate form, I didn't copy it correctly. Also, something that we probably should also do is hide our progress dialog at one point, because here we show it. And if we don't hide it, then it's not going to be a very good look to our app. So let's hide it directly here. So once it's completed, so hide progress dialog. And then let's move over to our main activity. Okay, just so that we see that it actually works. So start activity, intent from this to the main activity class.java, and intent needs to be imported. Let's do that real quick. Okay, so once we are successfully signed in, we want to move over to our main activity here. Now, of course, there's one last thing to do, and that is to add functionality to the button, because currently when we sign in, when we click on the sign in button, activity sign in, so let's see, we have this button called button sign in. If we click this one, nothing happens. So let's add an on-click listener to it. Sign in, set on-click listener, and here we will use the sign in registered user function. So this function that we just prepared. All right, and then there's one bug that I found as well when running the application. So you can test it, run it. The thing is, our setup action bar is really just a copy of the setup action bar in the sign up activity. And when you do that, you have to be careful, and I wasn't careful enough. So you can see set support action bar for toolbar sign up activity. Of course, it should be for our toolbar sign in activity. And the same goes down here with the set navigation on click listener. So if you do these kind of things, copy and pasting, you always need to double check for changes. But at the point when you test it, that's the latest moment when you will realize those things. So no worries there, it's still fine. So let's run it again. Now we should hopefully get to the sign in activity. All right, so there we are, sign in. Okay, so this seems to work. Let's test dennis@gmail.com. Password was super secure. Sign in. Please wait. And we are moved over to the Hello World screen, which is our main activity. So as it seems, this worked. So we are now logged in, which is pretty cool. So now you can see how you can sign up a user and how you can sign in a user. And now we can go ahead and display stuff to the user that is relevant to him. So that's of course what we have to set up step by step, because there is a lot of functionality that will follow, and we haven't even touched the database yet. So that's super interesting stuff that we're going to look at later on. So in the next video, first of all, we are going to create a new entry in the database. So we're going to create a new database itself, right? So using the Firestore in the next video, and then we're going to use the user class. So we're going to create a new model and so forth. So let's go ahead and check that out. See you in the next one. And by the way, I hope you were successful in writing this code and you fixed the bugs that we have here and everything, because at that point I would expect you to be able to do that. So if you weren't able to do that, then try to create another app where you do the sign in and sign up functionality from scratch all by yourself using the documentation only, because this is going to be super relevant and important when it comes to developing applications for customers in the future, or even for your own ideas that you have. Because running into errors is normal, it's no problem. Running into bugs is also normal. It's important to fix them, it's important to check out documentations, to read through the internet to find solutions and so forth. All right, so see you in the next one.